So we've been hearing a lot about unemployment on the news. It's actually been in the news, obviously, for over a year now. It started out, I would hear a lot of people complaining about the $600 a week bonus on top of the regular state unemployment. A lot of people felt that that was excessive. My response to that is, what is just compensation for someone that lost their livelihood through no fault of their own? What is due compensation for that? So I didn't think that the $600 a week bonuses on top of whatever people were getting from the state, I didn't feel that was excessive. I thought it was righteous. It was a righteous compensation. There were some politicians that wanted to carry it all the way through September. Unfortunately, the Republicans 86 that. So that ended up not happening. And then it was reduced from 600 to now 300. And I think last count from watching You Tuber Adam Snyder, he said 22 states out of the 50 states in the union have opted to cancel federal benefits. Now, that's not automatic to my knowledge. I think sometime midsummer, they're cutting people off and ending their federal benefits early. Now, I don't know why you would do that only like 2 or 3 months early, to presumably force people to go out and get jobs. But there's something I'd like to point out in terms of the worker shortage, labor shortage, and what I think we're seeing that I don't really hear anyone else acknowledging. If you look at, well, first of all, everyone that's on the unemployment program, most everyone that's on the unemployment program, lost their job due to the pandemic. You know, their place of work was shut down. A lot of these establishments are gone. A lot of the bars and restaurants that shut down, they're no longer coming back. So, uh, it's not that these people are on the dole or just didn't want to work or what have you. Now, in the very beginning, in the state that I live in, our governor said that if you don't feel safe, that you should not work. Um, if you felt unsafe due to the pandemic. Now, this was very early, and I don't know what his comments, if at all, how they transferred over into legality of people not going to work because they did not feel safe due to COVID. Um, I know that in my state, the work search requirement was waived during the pandemic, and it's still that way. It's currently still that way. You're not required to go out and look for work. You're only required to take and accept the work that you lost due to the pandemic. So I think what we're seeing is not just people, not wanting to work, which is what is being put out in a lot of media outlets and on, even on social media. A lot of people are complaining about it. I think that the people that are not returning are the elderly. A lot of elderly people that may not be returning because they're at high risk than anybody else with this disease. And I think potentially, if you know someone that passed away from it, it totally changes your perception on it. And I know somebody that passed away from it. A Facebook friend of mine passed away from it. So it really changes your perspective on things and the whole dynamic of looking at it once that happens. Some of the uh, senior citizens that work for larger corporations, they were furloughed. I think there's a large corporation here in town that employs a lot of people, ushers and people of that nature, security and such. And I'm pretty sure they were furloughed. Now, uh, I don't know what their status is, if they were called back, if people took the work, if they're called back. But I think that what you're seeing in terms of a labor shortage is a lot of these people weren't called back. They were furloughed. Those positions no longer exist. And whether it's the elderly that are, holding steady and being more reserved and going back to work. Or it's women. A lot of women are not or haven't returned to the workforce if they were displaced due to the pandemic, if they, had to quit working due to the pandemic. A lot of women are spending more time with their children. They're spending more time with their families. They're focusing on, personal goals and objectives. Some of them have, developed making masks and, running businesses on the side to help ends meet, through this pandemic. And quite frankly, a lot of men, I know I enjoy, much more time with particularly my youngest son, during this pandemic. And it's really been the greatest blessing of it, really, is to have all that personal time with him. So I think there's a lot of people that, what about the people that are in a situation where their jobs no longer exist, their place of employment closed down? How quick are any of those people that I just mentioned, all of which lost their livelihood through no fault of their own? Very important to remember, very important aspect to acknowledge here, okay? How many of them, when prior to the pandemic, 75% of Americans lived paycheck to paycheck, were some few weeks away from being in the red, going broke, going under. And for many people in that situation, this pandemic has kind of been a lifeline, a breath of fresh air, where they no longer need to kill themselves for X amount of hours per week and still barely get by. For the people that are upset and butthurt that there's people doing better, during the, because of the pandemic than what they were prior to that. They're getting more income due to unemployment than they did when they worked. There are people in that situation. I am not one of them. I took a tremendous loss through losing the income that I took prior to the pandemic. But for those that are making out for it, for those that are upset about the fact that there are others that are making out better than what they did before, realize that this might be, and probably is, the only time that those people were ever at an advantage in their whole entire lives. So, it's not like they hit the lotto and now they're living scot-free. Let's keep in mind, we don't know how long we're going to be in this situation. The industry that I work for, the concert and events industry, is still very much up in the air. Things are starting to come back. They're starting to bring things back. But there's also, shows and tours that are continuing to be postponed, rescheduled, things of that nature. So we're still very much in the gray in this whole, returning back to work and what the pandemic looks like. And there's a lot of varying factors that may change the labor shortage and availability once we really get back into the swing of things. And one of them is going to be the vaccinations. And I want to do a separate video on that because I think it's important to just focus on that and not get sidetracked with all this other sidebar stuff. But when it comes to the unemployment, that's what I think that we're seeing. I think that we're seeing certain groups that are, perhaps giving pause to come back to work right away. Let's face it, although there is a lot of jobs out there, a lot of them are, low-paying service jobs, which, depending on spikes and strains and, new viruses entirely, could change anything at a moment's notice. So I think that when you consider what everyone's experienced in the past year, especially if they've experienced a loss of life, a loved one, loss of income, change in income, they're going to utilize this time as a blessing. They're going to utilize this time to, try and restructure their life, particularly financially. If there's any forbearances they could have taken, or moving money around, or, using the stimulus money to put back in savings, or, pay off some debts so that they'd be in a better situation, hopefully, once all this goes away, which I hope and pray to God it does sometime soon, because It's been a lot to handle and withstand. It really has, the past 14 months and counting now. But anyway, that's my take on the unemployment. I think that you are seeing people that perhaps may not be taking the work. I don't see a lot of evidence of that. And even if that was the case, if people, weren't taking the work when they were getting called back, number one, they risk losing their benefits. Because while the person making that call may be sympathetic, because, we're kind of all in the same boat and, all the uncertainty, not really sure, where things are. And for a lot of people, once they take that work, unemployment isn't going to cut that check until they speak with them to find out what's going on. So they could wait. I've waited a month on 3 separate occasions to get my unemployment benefits. And some people can't withstand that. Some people can't, hold back that long. Okay, anyway, sounded like there was going to be a brief introduction. Happens all the time. House full of 6 people. It's why I don't make very many of these, because it's, impossible to have your own time to do it. Anyway, unemployment and people not taking work. In my situation, I always take the work available, always have. But in this status, when I do, they want to speak to me before they cut the check. And this is, everyone experiences this. Luckily, I haven't had to wait any more than a month. And then things get, turned back on to where they should be. But this happened to me recently. So a lot of people are reluctant to take the work because they know that if they take it, they risk losing weeks worth of benefits afterwards that are not going to be straightened out until they speak with the unemployment office, and God only knows how long that'll take. So that's why a lot of people are apprehensive. And, I think that sometimes maybe the people making these calls, unless they really, really, really need the labor and they're upset they can't find it, they may be sympathetic to people in that situation, because we don't know how long this is going to last. And as of now, as I understand it, no one is going to have unemployment benefits past September. I think it's like September 4th or, first week of September. It ends for everyone without an additional, extension if Congress votes to extend it. I think that's going to happen. I didn't, up until a couple of days ago, because I thought there's too much chatter out there about people not wanting to work, people not coming back to work. And eventually they're just going to say, hey, look, we've given enough out, we've done what we can, and now it's time to, make the decision to move on in your industry or what have you, personal choices that are going to affect, what your status is going to be moving forward for years to come. For some of us, that's, for good at our age. I know I've been holding out to try and go back to work. It wasn't long ago I was getting about 2 days a week. I felt pretty good about that. And then I had a full week, and that felt really good. And, it was some adjustment getting used to get back into the routine, but it felt good to get into it. It felt good to, to see people again. And, not just in my own experience, but I've seen other locals that are, getting back to work, and, riggers are climbing again, and, they're taking pictures and celebrating it. And you can just, you can see the raw emotion of people just legitimately being happy to get back into the swing of things. And seeing that, I felt very positive about it. I thought, man, it's going to be balls to the wall. It's going to be, you're just going to see events all over the place, and, maybe not even have enough people to fill them. But after, seeing some of the stuff that's still going on, they're still postponing tours, they're still postponing concerts. I think it's what I said in the beginning. It's not going to be like flipping on a switch in the Roaring 20s. I think it's going to come back gradually. And, the gradually probably won't take long. If it comes back gradually and there aren't any issues, then, I think it'll be pretty much smooth sailing from here on out. Live Nation is planning on booking twice the amount of shows that they did in 2019 in 2022. And 2019 was the absolute best year ever. It really was. It was a very strong year. 2020 was supposed to be a strong year on paper, and it really had the potential to be even better had the pandemic not hit, because they can book shows up until just a few short months out. So I have a lot of faith that 2022 is going to be an ass-kicking year, best year ever. It'll be a crazy year because I think that anytime you released pent-up, caged-up folks, it's going to get wild and crazy. But anyway, excited to for things to come back, and hopefully we'll all be working soon. And I will make another video on some aspects of going back to work and how I think that's going to be. So I hope everyone stays safe. Peace and love, y'all.